Welcome back to Love, Growth, and Narratives. I'm Freddy.
And I'm Tiffany.
In this 11th episode, we're going to talk about love. We're going to bring you in on an active conversation about the contrast of interest and effort. This conversation started around our upcoming wedding. Tiffany communicated to me that she felt like she was doing the wedding preparation all alone. She seemed frustrated that I was less interested in the floral arrangements, the different color schemes, as well as the other intricacies that are required to make the big day not only run smooth, but be memorable. And in talking to friends that I know and others, it seems that men have two ways of addressing issues like this. But I think I found a third. However, before we jump into that discussion, we need to do a bit of housekeeping.
Yes. Again, everyone, thank you for listening. Our numbers of followers and subscribers has gone up a tad bit. The numbers of listeners has gone up quite a bit, and we thank you so much for doing that. We're getting feedback. One piece of feedback in particular that really warms our heart is from a couple that has been listening to our podcast, and it ignited a conversation between the two of them, and they spoke in a way that they haven't spoken before and have gotten closer than they were before. And that's exactly why we do this.
That's awesome.
That it just really makes us feel really good that people are able to take this in and apply it in their own lives and maybe be inspired to have certain conversations. And I want to give a shout out to Lori of Southern California, who is not only a friend of mine, but she is a listener who has listened to all of our podcasts, every single one. Every time it comes out, she's there to let me know, give me feedback. And we really appreciate her listening and, just staying with us every step of the way.
And it's good to know that we apply that feedback. And so we love to hear not only the encouragement, but sometimes the constructive criticism that can help us to bring more value to this podcast.
Right. At this point, I want to go in and talk about some things that you mentioned.
Yeah, and I'm not quite sure that she is on board with how I started off the podcast, so I'm going to give her the opportunity to correct whatever I have messed up here.
So we've been having this ongoing conversation, and we seem to be on slightly different steps of the staircase in regards to my expectation around the wedding in particular. I think Freddie feels, that I want him to take as much of an interest in me and all of the tiny details, the color of the plate, the color of the flowers, all of those types of things. I don't really expect that. Would that be nice? Yes. But I don't expect that level, right? Because I some men are totally into all of that. However, Freddie is not. So I don't expect that level. But what I do expect is for the wedding itself to be a priority on his list of things to do. To his credit, he comes to every appointment that we've had. He knows everything that's going on. He's done things, we've done things together, putting in addresses and phone numbers and things like that. However, I find myself being the one to always bring it up. It's time to do something for the wedding, or I'm pushing him to get something done that is strictly, his responsibility. And that's where the frustration comes in, especially as we get closer to going back to work, where I'm going to be reminding, 23 little people what to do every second of the day. I don't really want to do that as well when I come home, or especially around this wedding, which is temporary. This is going to be over eventually. And so I feel like it's something, I want him to be like, okay, what's on our list that we have to knock off? What are things that we need to do? And so that is more of what I'm expecting from him than, picking the color of the tablecloth. I like his input. Like, what do you think of this? But I don't expect him to be as excited or as, so to speak, as I am about all of those little things. So, Freddie, I don't want you to think that I am expecting you to take this interest in the shades of purple but I do want you to be thinking about, hey, have we got our invitations out? Hey, do we get what we need from the DJ? Was the florist got everything she needs? That type of thing. So to me, that's the bigger picture, and I'm the little tiny pieces.
Right. And the reason why this really sparked the conversation, and it wasn't really about the wedding, but it's also about us building a life together and then continuing to love each other and everything that goes along with that. And I know in the past, in past relationships, the way I've treated situations like this, and I know with friends and a whole lot of men that I know what they do in circumstances like this. And I'm using the wedding as an example, but it can be other things where the men that I've talked to will either take two routes. What they'll do is they'll say, look, I don't care about the wedding. Just let me know when to show up and what to wear, and I'll be there. Mm-hmm. And the other path is to pretend like you care, but still really not do anything. Mm-hmm. My third way, which I think is the better way, is really kind of what Tiffany does for me in circumstances where we need to do things and she doesn't have the same interest level, but she knows that she needs to match my efforts. And so in terms of being better at loving my woman, what I am proposing to her or letting her know is that I'm going to do my best to match your efforts, even in circumstances where we don't exactly have a match of interest. And I think that as men, we have to do a better job with stuff like that, because the other ways of going about it, either, hey, just let me know when to be there, it's not fair, and it doesn't happen to you. Oftentimes when you want to do something, you have an interest in something, even especially if it's something that benefits both of you, but it's something that you have a particular interest in. More often than not, the woman will also match your effort. Mm-hmm. Whereas for men, we don't feel like we need to do that. And I think that's wrong. And I think that we need to correct that.
Right. So going back to the fact that this week we're talking about love. Love isn't just a feeling, it's an action.
Yes.
Right. So you need to act as if you love this person. And there are certain things that you need to do to show that. And my love language, once again, one of them is acts of service. So I'm expecting to have a partner who is going to initiate some acts that may not be necessarily an interest, but put that effort there, like you talked about. Like, there are certain things that may not be either of our interests in particular, yes, right? But that we both need to put the effort into it, right? So I'm not interested in washing dishes. It's not like, ooh, I just, the suds are just so exciting, yeah, right? But it needs to be done. Yes. It benefits both of us, and we both need to put the effort in to get it done. I don't expect to be myself excited about it, nor you. However, I also don't want to have to chase anyone, and I don't. And I'm just giving an example because Freddy totally washes dishes. But I'm just giving an example of something that needs effort and not interest per se at all by either of us, right? But we also have been talking a lot about we have some things that we do have similar interest in. Like we were talking about this, like we both like to drink wine, we like to watch a good show together and just relax. What were some of the other things that we came up with?
We had talked about travel, we had talked about going for a walk, we had talked about there was a few things that we had,
right? We kind of like old school, hip hop, yes, things like that. But we actually don't have a ton of things that we have, a high interest in together. Yes. So we're talking about like, let's do more things together. Let's have new experiences together. We do like going out to dinner and like drinks and things like that, trying new foods or new places. But we're talking about having more experiences together so we have more shared interests, things that we both have high interest in. But when we don't, we still need to take a little bit of an interest and put a little bit of effort into the other thing that the person likes to do. For example, Freddy likes this bloody MMA, whatever it is, fighting.
UFC, one championship.
I'm not a sports fan at all. And although I respect athletes, I don't like boxing or watching people get beat up, but I have watched it with him a couple of times. And so I don't have a high interest in it, but I do want to spend time with him. And he likes to joke about, how I'm missing it and things like that. I don't watch it every single time, but I have watched it. And I appreciate, that he wants to just have me near him doing this,
yes,
even though it's not a high, level interest or even an interest of mine. And I try not to, while I'm doing it, huff and puff and roll my eyes or walk out the room and all of that, because that's just a lack of respect, in my opinion.
Well, I think one of the things that makes that a little bit easier is I'm not a sports fanatic.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy sports. I enjoy watching a good MMA fight, a good jiu-jitsu match. I enjoy watching basketball, NBA basketball, but I'm not a fanatic. And so if I miss a game or I miss a fight, it doesn't ruin me.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like having you with me for those times, because when I'm buying a UFC event, which may cost $70 to $80, I'm gonna watch that one because I just spent all that money. So,
right.
And I'd love to have you with me.
Mm-hmm.
I know you don't enjoy the punches and the holds and the blood and all of that kind of stuff.
I can't watch people get hurt.
Whereas I do love the competition,
mm-hmm.
but I appreciate the times that you spend, with me while we're doing these things. And what I'm saying is that as men, we have to do a better job of doing the same thing, where even if it's something that isn't particularly our interest, to make sure that we are putting some effort towards it. And if it's something that benefits both of us, making sure that we match the effort.
Absolutely. It's really important. I think that goes to sometimes, things in the house or child rearing and things like that, that maybe the man is not interested at certain ages in the child and all of that. Oh, when they get older, but you can't bow out of certain things that are, may not be high level interest to you. And those are the things where, and I also don't want to be the one who's always bringing it up. I want it to be on your priority list as well as mine.
Yeah.
And in a similar position, because these are big things, you know what I mean? So I think that's important for us to, hey, we love this person and, we have to match their effort in things, and we're not always going to be doing the same thing at the same time.
Right.
Sometimes someone's going to take on something all on their own.
Yes.
And the other person's going to take on something else. But at the end of the day, we're still kind of matching effort, because you're not bogging down one person with a bunch of tasks.
Yes.
And I think that's the important thing that we have to keep in mind.
Yeah. I mean, we still support each other. I mean, like, for instance, something that I think that benefits us as a family, but is a particular interest of mine, being the nerd that I am, was that when I first moved in, I started putting in an alarm system. And so I did all the windows and doors, and I put in automation so that we didn't need a key to open the door, because I know how people lose keys. And so being able to open the door with your watch or with your phone, which, for Tiffany initially thought that was just silly, but now she enjoys it, and having automations in terms of the lights, so that, if you forget to turn off the kitchen light, you can just tell Siri to do it.
Right. Or use your phone.
Yeah. And she thought it was silly when she would come over to my apartment. She thought all that stuff was silly, but now I think she sees the value in all of it. And it helps us as a family, so that, if we ever need to let someone in, we can actually remotely unlock the door.
Right. And I just appreciate having Freddy with me, even on some projects that I'm kind of heading. I appreciate him being there and just, at times handling the difficult part of it, or, drawing me back to the big picture, or stepping in to tell whoever we're working with to be a little firmer with them. So that's important, I think, and just to be knowledgeable about what's going on. I think I personally probably could not, or don't want to at least, be in a situation where I have no idea about something that's for both of us, where I'm just like, I don't know, I have no clue. And actually, doing this podcast is a little bit a part of that. I mean, we do this together, but Freddie's the one who does all the editing and he makes it work. And if he was down and wasn't able to do it, you guys would have to wait, because I don't know how to do all of that. I'm willing to, but that is kind of his position in this,
I enjoy the technology.
Yeah.
I enjoy those types of things, the post-production and stuff like that. But in terms of the podcast, we do match effort.
Mm-hmm.
And so that to me is what's important. And the other reason why I bring this up is that in past relationships, the way I went about things was I would pretend to kind of like it. I would try to convince myself to like it, but I really didn't. And so a lot of times the stuff still didn't get done, and what I didn't want to do that here in loving you and having this relationship. I want to constantly be better than the way I was in the past. And so that's why when I felt like there was tension around the wedding, I wanted to start the conversation and have the conversation, even though I know that the wedding was just a small piece of it. But I'm talking about in terms of moving forward, because come November, the wedding's going to be over. Mm-hmm. And we still have other things where both of us need to be involved. It benefits either the family or the couple. And I need to make sure that even if I can't match your interest, I can at least match your effort.
Right.
So that we get it all done. And Tiffany is right. There are things where neither one of us have interest in it, but have to be done. And so in those situations there again, I need to match the effort.
Yeah, I think that's really important, so that one person doesn't feel like they're carrying the load, or you just feel like your interests, things about you, you just feel like the person cares about it. I understand there's, probably people are thinking right now, well, go do certain things with your girlfriend. And I agree, there are certain things you're going to do with your friend or your girlfriend or your male friend or whatever. There are different things that you might do. But when it's something like that's definitely directed and benefits the both of you, why would I need to go to someone else to do that? At least that's my viewpoint. So I don't expect him to, every week go get his nails done with me. Not that I even do that myself, although we have gone a few times.
I don't mind getting my nails done.
But, to just sit there and be like, I don't do that. Like in my past relationships, there was a lot of, I don't do that. I don't do this. It's a girl thing, or it's I just don't want to. And I didn't feel connected. And so that for me, that's really important, to feel connected. Like this person realizes that this is important to both of us.
Yeah.
And the need to help out. That's what partnership is.
And I think that one of the reasons why our love works so well is we can just stop and have these types of conversations. Mm-hmm. And that to me is critical, because in my past, there would be a situation where I felt the tension, but I was like, I don't want to mess with it right now. Mm-hmm. And then you wait until things get to a boiling point, and then two people are blowing up at each other. And, I would rather try to work on these things before they get to that point, and before things get to where you get all the yelling and screaming and name calling and all of that kind of stuff.
Right. Which we have absolutely never done. I mean, we're almost 3 years in, but and I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I don't think we're going to be calling each other names, though. No. That's wild.
No, I've never been much into the name call.
No, but I would say for me, because Freddie and we get along so well, you and I get along so well, and most of the time, and we talk so much and everything, that when there is discomfort, I have a little bit of a hard time with it. Excuse me, because I'm used to oh, there's a problem. Maybe we're not meant to be. Now we're going to fight and we're going to break up. Like that's been, my pattern in things. So I'm trying not to do that here, but that feeling still comes up. Yeah. And I'm trying to be very cognizant of that feeling of not repeating those bad patterns in past relationships where it's like, just because we're having a disagreement or we're not seeing eye to eye on something doesn't mean, oh, we're not compatible and oh my gosh. And I start going down this, rabbit hole, as you always say. So I really like that I'm slowing down. I might need a couple hours to be like, okay, let me really think about this in my mind. And we just need to work on this. I don't need him to become me, right? I have to accept that he's different from me and likes different things. But at the same time, I have to talk about what my needs are and be able to express it like a mature adult and have uncomfortable conversations without thinking it means, some love is lost.
Yeah. And that's one of the differences also is that, and I guess this is something that has started with me over the past few years, is that when we have tension, I actually get excited because this gives us the opportunity to get closer. Right. Because these are things that are out there that at some point are going to hit us. But the sooner we get beyond it, the stronger we're going to be. Right. And so it's interesting that we have two different attitudes oftentimes when it comes to these types of things. Mm-hmm. She's nervous about, okay, well, that means that we're falling apart. I'm like, no, that means we're getting stronger. Right. Because two individuals that have known each other for less than 3 years, even with all the in-depth and vulnerable conversations that we've had, there's no way that we could have gamed out every single issue that we can have. Mm-hmm. But the fact that I have a partner that I can work these things out with just makes it great, putting it on myself because I didn't always want to have the conversation. I would always think, oh boy, here we go with this long conversation. But now I realize that having those conversations as soon as something hits, even if it becomes a long conversation, right, once it's done, it feels so much better. And I sleep better when you and I are getting along. So. Yeah.
I know. It's so, because we're so, affectionate, and you're telling me, 100 times a day how amazing I am. So when I feel like I disappoint you, even though it's a small thing, it's not, it still impacts me so heavily because I'm so used to you just constantly praising me. And then you'll say something, that shows that you aren't happy with a certain, incident usually, or particular maybe characteristic I have. And then I just immediately go to, oh my gosh, the love's fading. You know what I mean? But I know that that's not what it is, because as soon as I talk to you about it, you let me know that, no, this is just something that and I like that you're always talking about things that we need to address from a standpoint, this is something we need to do to be better, and it's not like some, thing that changes how you feel about me. Because I was concerned initially that we didn't have more things in common that we like to do together. It was important, as we were talking about this before we started, I said, well, let's name the things we do like. And there are things that we do like. Yeah. There's a list of them. There are. And then there's many things that we haven't done yet that we want to explore. So I'm sure there are way more things that we like to do together besides, talking and the things, the things that we already know for sure. There's just so many experiences we haven't had. So, but I appreciate that you put the effort even to having those experiences, so that we can, it's going to make us closer, and having date night and all that kind of stuff is really important.
And I also want to talk about why I started the podcast with a flawed premise. I knew that it was flawed, but the reason why I started it off that way is because when the conversation first started, that's what I felt was your problem. And that's the reason why it's so critical to have these conversations.
Right.
Because I could be thinking, oh, her problem is this, and it's something totally different.
Right.
But because of the fact that I said, hey, it seems like you have a problem with this, and then you saying, no, that's not my problem. My problem is the fact that I'm doing so many of these things, on my own, where you're not matching the effort. I'm not asking you to care about all the flowers and all of that kind of stuff, which is what I thought you wanted me to do. But that's where it comes down to. If you don't have the conversation, how would you ever know?
Absolutely.
And how often have you been at odds with someone and don't even realize that your problems are like they're not in parallel. They have nothing to do with each other.
I agree. So I'm glad we definitely had this conversation, because at first I was like, what? That is not what I'm saying. You know what I mean? I know that you don't even have a favorite color, let alone are you going to sit there and talk about all the shades of the color? But I did want you to see it. And, I don't want you to be seeing it for the first time. Like, I had no clue. Like, that's kind of unacceptable for me, because it's your wedding too. And I just think, it's important for both people to be involved in certain things. It should be both of our hands in it.
I agree. And I tried with down with the florist talking about colors of purple and white and all of this kind of stuff for 2.5 hours. I must admit there were a few times that I wanted to walk out in traffic and try to get hit by a truck. But when I said, you know what, I'm going to power it through. I'm going to try to give my opinion, even though it was funny that each time you asked me my opinion and I would tell you, you were like, really?
Yeah, right. Because I'm like, is he just saying that to get us through this further, or do you really like this particular thing?
I was giving my best opinion, but because of the fact that I don't stare at flowers that much.
I don't either.
I was just kind of doing, you don't stare at flowers that much, but the one thing about you is you know what you want.
I do.
And you know what you don't want.
I absolutely do. Most of the time, not 97% of the time, I know what I want. I have a vision in my mind, and I have to make it happen.
Yeah. So, but this is why it's critical to have these conversations.
Yes.
And so I'm going to keep pushing that, because that's what we need to do. And so what I have to do and what I've been doing over the past week is really trying to up my effort when it comes down to the wedding, in terms of getting all the addresses together and making sure stuff gets coordinated. I have been trying to make that top of mind, especially because it's coming up in a few months. We don't have a whole lot of time left.
Right. And I appreciate that. And so, if anything, walking away, those of you out there listening, walking away from this episode, I would ask you to talk about the effort versus interest, and how the effort that you put in, real effort,
yes,
right? Not like, oh, I baked a cookie. What do you mean? I do cook. You know what I mean? We're talking about genuine effort,
yes,
that helps your partner.
Yes.
Even if you may or may not have an interest in that thing, putting some effort towards it that can go a really long way.
Yes, and if it benefits the both of you, matching the effort.
Match things.
Even if you don't match the interest.
Right, absolutely. Yes.
Which for us men can sometimes be a difficult ask, but we should do that, and you deserve that, especially since I know Tiffany does that for me. She absolutely deserves that in return.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And so, as we wrap up this discussion, this one's a little bit shorter. We went long for the 10th episode, and I appreciate everyone sticking with us for that. But as we wrap this one up, we just really want to make sure that for the men, and in those circumstances where the women are doing that you love your mate so much that you care about their interests and things that interest them. And if those things benefit the both of you, that you really make sure that you match the effort.
Absolutely. And obviously going that other way for women to do that for your men as well. I think it just makes the relationship healthier, and it makes you closer, and it helps you grow as an individual.
Absolutely. So we are going to wrap this up, and we thank you so much. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and follow and all those things. If we are bringing you discussions of value, and leave comments, go on our Instagram page, Love, Growth, and Narratives. And
I added the word podcast. I didn't tell you that. So the Instagram page is Love, Growth, Narratives, Love, Growth, and Narratives Podcast.
Okay. So on that one, yes, please.
Yes.
Leave comments. Let us know what you think about it. We really read all of that, and we take it all in. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you. And we are out.